What's going on, guys, and welcome back to the Bit of Footy YouTube channel for another episode of the Footy Friends Podcast. Now, today is going to be a bit of a smaller episode because we're pretty much just going to be talking about the race to the finals. This is the last round of the season, the home and away season, that is, before we head in to the thick, the thin, the enjoyment, the excitement, the enthralling 2020 final series, and I can't wait to rip into that. But we got a week left, and there's a few little things that need to be sorted, especially the final top 8, because there is still a few teams that are mixing around, that are just sniffing around the 8s, that could just slide in, and we'll be talking a lot about that today. So as always, I'm joined by co-host Chloe. How are we doing today, Chloe?
I'm very good, thank you. How are you?
I am doing very well myself. Chloe goes for the Western Bulldogs, and they needed the win last Sunday. So how was your heart rate during that game? Against the Hawks.
Well, I mean, we kicked the first goal within like 12 seconds. I mean, McLean's obviously a downer on the game because he won't play next year.
Yeah,
but
unfortunate.
I just think we have a habit of kicking away, and then once we're like 30 points up, we let them back in a bit.
Yeah.
Like, why can't we just like keep kicking goals instead of stopping? Because like in the finals, you can't do that. Like, you cannot do that against top teams. So hopefully this week, if we play like we did last week, just keep the same pace the whole game. I'll be happy.
Hopefully. So that will be a big challenge against the Dockers this week. So so you pretty much need to win that game. That's And
if we win, we're in.
So it's going to be like very intense, that game, and there'll be a lot of results before that game that could go your way, and maybe you don't even have to win that game. But we're going to speak about that in a bit. But just to kick things off, not many topics talking about today, but there's just two little ones at the bottom that you probably saw. And we're going to talk about the teams, because there's been a lot of shocks this season, like teams that have been pretty decent that we thought were going to be pretty shit. And there's been some shocks in the opposite direction when we thought teams are going to be pretty amazing and they've been pretty shit. But I feel like I don't know what I've just said there, but anyway. I want to know a team that has really just surprised you this season, and what they've done to surprise you, maybe the ladder positioning, maybe just their ball movement has changed from last year to this year and all that stuff. So what team comes to mind that's really, surprised you in a good way, obviously?
Obviously. I reckon there's been two, but I think the most surprising for me has been St Kilda. I mean, they were pushing, I don't know, they were pushing for finals last year, I think. They were mid of the bottom 8. I think they were 9th or something, 10th. I don't know where they finished last year. But they've started off really well. Yeah. I thought they were going to be a top 4 side, to be honest, for the finals. They've led a bit back the last 5 or so weeks. But, I mean, if they win this week, they're playing finals. So they obviously have gone up in the ladder a lot. So, I reckon they're a chance to be a little bit of an upset in the finals if they make it. Oh!
Yeah, fair call of the Saints, but it's hard to get a good reading on the Saints and where they're at.
Exactly, they're 50-50.
They're 50-50, and I think the West Coast game was a prime example of how 50-50 they are. I mean, a lot of people were expecting them to win that game. There are a lot of big West Coast Eagles names that weren't playing in that game. They almost took the game at the end, but then they just, sort of lost control of the game. The Eagles took control. And it was just unfortunate because now they have to win this weekend to pretty much
basically,
lock it in against the Giants. So that's a fair call. The Saints definitely have been a surprise packet this year, especially considering the start to their season wasn't the best, just losing to North Melbourne.
Yeah.
And they lost. They then lost to us by a few points and all that. So they didn't have the best start to the season, but they've moved on and now they're in the top 8 and looking to secure a final spot. A team that surprised me this season, geez, I think utterly shocking. There's a lot of shouts that we could say, but I think the biggest shout is Port Adelaide, obviously.
Yeah, that was my other one,
Yeah. I think not a lot of people had them to be in the position where they are right now, currently. It's crazy to think that they've been on top of the ladder for the entire season. After the break, we thought, okay, the top of the ladder will chop and change. But no, it's just been Port Adelaide every single friggin' week. It's beyond ridiculous at this point. I mean, they've just shocked the AFL world. They've beaten teams that you think, oh, wow, okay. When they beat Richmond, I thought that was like their big game. When they beat Richmond, I thought, wow, okay, I've got to actually take them serious now because, that... They were up there, but they were beating teams that were just like middle table or just in the top 8. And they lost to St Kilda, and they were just like, are they really a team to watch out for? But I think they really earned that, title after beating Richmond by a solid 21 points. And, they've sort of controlled where they're at from there. And, They absolutely showed just a good amount of form against North Melbourne. I think it was last week. I mean, their midfielders absolutely crushed. Boak got 34, Rockcliffe got 30, Wines got 30. 3 players in their midfield getting 30 disposals. That should almost be illegal, but it happened. And also, I don't know who they absolutely just blew Essendon out the park last week. So they're coming into this game with us on the back of some pretty good form. I'm sure we'll make sure it's a closer game than what the last couple of weeks have been for Port, but who knows? Who knows what could happen? But they've been the surprise packet, sitting pretty at the top of the ladder, just chilling there, having fun. Could have a vacation on top. But so they've been both of those teams have been a definite surprise, but we're going to talk about the disappointment of the season. With happiness comes sadness, and with surprises can also come disappointment. And we have to talk about teams that have disappointed us this season. There's a lot of disappointing things. There's a lot of disappointing teams. But who do you think's been the thorough disappointment of the season that you thought were going to be okay at the start of the season? Like they were playing okay footy and then they sort of like dropped off a little bit, or maybe, it could be their ladder positioning again. What do you think? How are you thinking about this? Who is it? It's an interrogation. Who is it?
I reckon... It's hard to choose because, obviously you could think, Adelaide, because you know how they went, 0-12, 0-13 until they won their first game. Yep. But personally for me, I think how Hawthorn started, they looked like they were, on top, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
And they just missed out on finals last year. They finished 9th. So, I mean, yes, they've got a young side, but I just feel like for the Hawthorn that we know and we've been growing up watching, it's just disappointing to see that they're bottom 4. Do you know what I mean? But I'm sure they're in the rebuild. But I reckon in a couple more years, they're rebuilding, like I said. But it's just been disappointing to watch because you think they've got their midfields like Warple, Mitchell. Who else is in the midfield?
Yeah,
Burgoyne sometimes goes in there. Yeah. So they've got a decent midfield. It's just like they've got really no forwards to aim for. The backs are a bit, I don't know, but yeah.
Have they left it?
Disappointing for me this year.
Yeah, have they left it like too old? Have they left like some of their players in? And
Yes.
have you been thinking this player is a bit old? He's losing his touch, and you can sort of like personally, Burgoyne is a prime example of this. He's losing his touch a bit. He's not, and all of a sudden he's getting chucked around in positions that he doesn't normally play. Like on the weekend, for example, he was put in the back line, and look what happened then. The Dogs win by 36 points. Probably not the best decision. And player-wise, it's like it's bad, but I also think there's an element of coaching-wise, like they don't really know. Yeah. They're losing a bit of structure, and they're not really putting the right players in the right positions. And I think a good example is what they're doing with McAvoy in the back line. He is 100% not a backline player. It's beyond ridiculous what they're doing. And take it back to the Essendon game where Essendon started running riot in like the third and fourth quarter, and they just wouldn't change McAvoy into the centre square, which I thought was ridiculous. And then they ended up losing that game when they had a handy lead at half time. And, it was partially McAvoy on Danaher, and Danaher kicked 3 goals that game. And, McAvoy was just pretty useless after half time. Yeah. So, it's just...
And I think, like you said, with the coaching as well, it's like Clarkson's been there for ages. I'm not saying Clarkson needs to go. I'm just saying for the rebuild, if you're starting to rebuild a team, it's stopping maybe see how it goes. I remember like in a couple episodes ago, we were saying how it depends on how Hawthorn goes next year. If they make finals, yes, that's good, but I feel like Clarkson's been there. I think there needs a bit of a change. He's already been there through the right of the 3-peat and everything like that. So it's like if you're going to start a new journey, I feel like you need to start with a new coach as well. I
think that is a very fair shout. I think a lot of Hawthorn fans don't like it when you say Clarko's reign is coming to an end, but you have to admit it is coming to a slow dead end at this point of his career. And I just don't know. I'll give him one more year, but it's coming to a slow end. That's what I'm thinking. But maybe we're entitled. Like that Essendon coach said. I don't know. I forgot who it was, but he
Worsfold?
said, Worsfold. It's just like Essendon fans are entitled, and they think they deserve to be higher in a quicker time frame. But it's a fair shout. I think that's a fair shout to say, because just look at Buckley. We've had this stop for 3 or 4 years, maybe 5 years, and then we've come back to being a good team. So it takes a bit. You're not just gonna climb the mountain in one friggin' go. You're gonna have trial after trial after trial, and then eventually you will get it. Like Darcy Moore, he was in the forward line for a couple of seasons. In the back line, sorry. Oh, yeah, in the forward line. I was right the first time. And, that was a trial. And then we moved him to the back line, and now look at him. So it will take a lot of moving around, a lot of this, a lot of that. And eventually you will get it right. But,
Eventually.
Right now, Hawthorn aren't getting it right. But yeah, I think another fair shout for disappointment of the season, and I'm not taking this off ladder positioning, well, sort of, aka but I think the GWS Giants, I don't think they've been up to their A-grade level this season. I think there's a fair shout for a few other teams that haven't been up to their highest. Melbourne. In that list. But yeah, geez, GWS, they have fallen off a fair bit, and I don't know if this is the travelling factor that you have to take into place, but this year they just haven't looked themselves. Jeremy Cameron hasn't looked to his best. Now I think Riccardi's come in, he's looked all right, but with when Riccardi and Cameron, that first game that they played together, they looked on. When Cameron isn't on, it's just, their forward line looks a bit lackluster. So, just for me, I think the Giants, they're a bit in that iffy space, and we know what they have to do this week to, be close enough to reach. But I think they've just been pretty disappointing this year, and I think, most years at this stage of the season, they'll just be in the top 4 chilling. But right now, they're outside the 8 and fighting desperately for a position in the 8. But anyway, talking about the 8, we've got a week left. And it's getting to the spicy round of the season.
Spicy round.
It's intense. It's very intense. So luckily for me, I did all these calculations, but then AFL just posted a picture of what the teams need to do. So I think we take a good read of it. I'll read it out, and we'll contemplate whether we'll think it will happen or not, whether there's a big chance or not. So let's have so St Kilda, they're in 7th right now, and they've got a huge game on Friday night. I tell you what. So if they beat the Giants, the Saints, they're in. They're locked in, right? They're locked and loaded. So the Saints need to beat the Giants. That's all they need to do. They're locked into finals if that happens. If they lose, I don't know if they can go out of finals if they lose, which is why I think my notes are helpful. Anyway, who cares?
Actually, no, because if they do lose by a bit and Melbourne smash Essendon, Melbourne are only 5% behind St Kilda.
True.
So it's it's hard. Percentage plays a massive part as well.
It's going to be a huge ride. Then your beloved Bulldogs are next in 8th spot right now currently. So they just need to defeat Fremantle. Fremantle, or they need St Kilda to defeat GWS and Essendon to lose to Melbourne. I could see one of those results happening, but I'm not sure about Essendon beating Melbourne. So you would most likely just want to beat Fremantle just to be safe. And I'm pretty sure your game is after both the Saints game and the D's game. So
yes, it is. So that's going to be the matchup. But then obviously when Collingwood will play Port, that's going to be massive as well.
So you'll be probably rooting for the Saints and the Bombers.
The Bombers,
just to, lock it in. But so that's what the Dogs need to do. And I think these games are just so big because, look, I'm not sure about the Melbourne Essendon one, but the St Kilda versus GWS one, that's huge. And
massive,
the Dogs and Dockers one, that's also huge because the Dockers are sort of finding form at this stage of the season, and the Dogs, they're scraping at the heels of the 8, and they need to win this one to lock it in. A lot of pressure. There's this, that, everything. Calculations. Bring out the calculators while you're at it. But there's so many things. Melbourne, they are outside the 8. They are one game or percentage outside the 8. So they need to defeat Essendon.
One game.
Yeah, they're one game out. They need to defeat Essendon, and they also need Fremantle to defeat the Dogs and St Kilda to lose percentage in the loss to... they pretty much need the Giants to beat the Saints by a thorough margin. Is what it's saying. But, so if the Dogs win... So if Melbourne win, that's okay. But if the Dogs then win, that's it. The D's won't play. So they're relying heavily on other results. And then the Giants in 10th place. Jeez, if they make it in, it will be a miracle. They need to defeat St Kilda with a massive percentage boost. So they need to win by a lot, which I don't think will happen. I don't think that will happen.
No.
I think that game will be close. And then Essendon, and then they also need Essendon to defeat Melbourne. Jeez, Essendon are just like the lookers right now. They're just being looked at by other teams.
Literally.
And they also need Fremantle to defeat the Bulldogs. Bloody hell. So... literally every team that's not in the running to make finals still has a role in the race to the finals. It's insane. So, that in that case, still have something to play for. You know, the teams that aren't playing finals still have a role at, you know, maybe not making this team make finals or making this team nervous and all that stuff. It's just going to be a race. And it's exciting. This is what we like about the last round, because you never know what will happen.
Yep.
But yes, so I asked Chloe to prepare her first week of finals, what it will look like. I've also prepared mine, but I think before we can do ours, I've actually gotten onto Instagram and asked the people to see what their finals would look like, and I've also gotten onto TikTok, and there was a few responses there as well.
Oh, TikTok.
Don't worry, it was safe. So the TikTok ones, I'll read a couple. So Jacko_Tiges said the first week will look like Port Adelaide versus Geelong, Brisbane versus Richmond, West Coast versus St Kilda, and the Bulldogs taking on Collingwood. Could you imagine that?
Jeez.
I did an example photo, and I'll pull it up real quick, just so I can remind me. So my top four, the example was Port Adelaide versus Richmond, Geelong versus Brisbane as the top four final situation. And then Legendary 420, but I'm pretty sure you don't spell legendary like that. But he said the top four example was right, but West Coast will play Collingwood and the Bulldogs will play St Kilda. Which will, you know, the Saints and the Dogs have had a few finals encounters, and you know
we don't talk about that.
Yeah,
we don't talk about that.
And the Eagles and Collingwood, we know their finals history. Fuck it hell. Someone, Trerin, I don't know how to say it. Trerin69, really original name. Said Port v Cats, Tigers v Lions, West Coast v Collingwood, and the Bulldogs versus the Saints. So a lot of people think that, you know, the Pies are going to fly over to Big Optus and the Dogs will and the Saints will verse each other at Metricon. And if we have a look at Instagram, I think there's a flurry of different answers. The example that I wrote, someone said they had the same as the example. Someone said they love me and said the Eagles will finish 5th and the Pies will finish 8th, so that will be a final. Someone said for Collingwood to get knocked out in the first game. Thank you very much.
Getting roasted here, Sam.
Yeah, I know. Someone did a bit of a ladder prediction. They said Brisbane will finish 1st. The Power will finish 2nd. Eagles will finish... Richmond will finish 3rd. Cats will finish 4th. Eagles will finish 5th. Pies will finish 6th, which will be great for us. The Saints will finish 7th. And the Dogs will finish 8th. Which, you know, isn't a bad shout. We had Proudy_M7 said it will be the Power versus the Tigers in the qualifying final. The Lions versus the Cats in a qualifying final. The Eagles versus the D's in an elimination final. And the Pies versus the Saints in an elimination final. Felix said Brisbane versus Tigers. Geelong versus Port. West Coast versus St Kilda. I think he messed it up. And he was meant to say, and the Dogs versus Collingwood. Because I said that Collingwood can't not make finals. So he fixed it up after that.
Okay.
Because he originally had Dogs versus D's, but then he realised that Collingwood couldn't not make finals. So he fixed it up and said Dogs versus Collingwood. That would be juicy. Oh, that would be juicy. Imagine.
Interesting podcast.
Yeah. KDO_YT said in order of qualifying, blah, blah, blah. Lions versus Cats will be qualifying. Power versus Tigers will be the qualifying. Eagles versus Demons will be an elimination final. And Pies versus Saints will be an elimination final. So we've got a fair few mixed responses here.
Wow.
And the last one from Cardman22 says Port versus Cats, Lions versus Tigers, Eagles versus the Dogs. Jeez, that would be rough. And the Pies versus the Saints. So pretty much no one really wants to play the Eagles in an elimination final because we'll be over there. That's what they officially said.
I mean, we did that.
Someone's gonna have to,
but I don't want to do it again.
Someone's gonna have to. I think, at Domain there's a fair chance, but like at Optus Stadium it's a bit more scary than it is at Domain. But anyway, so I would like for you to read out your final series first. What your first week of finals will look like. Not the whole thing, obviously, but
obviously
the first week.
I reckon stick with the top 4 it is now. So Port versus Cats, Lions versus Richmond.
Okay.
And then I reckon it's going to be Eagles versus Collingwood, and then we'll play St Kilda.
Okay, all right. That's interesting. That's interesting. I've went different.
Oh.
I think I just did a little bit of ladder predicting it before this, just to see what it would look like. And I came to the conclusion that Brisbane will finish on top after all this. I know. I think we're going to beat the Power. And that will make Brisbane go on top. So Brisbane will versus Geelong in a qualifying final. First v fourth. Then the second one will be Port Adelaide versus Richmond. That will be huge at the Adelaide Oval.
Very good game, that would.
And then West Coast will take on the Dogs in an elimination final at Optus Stadium. The nerves tingle. And then Collingwood will take on St Kilda in an elimination final at probably the Gabba or Metricon Stadium. Oh boy. So that is the first week of finals predictions done from both of us. So yeah, this has been a much shorter podcast than normal.
Yeah.
We're going to be taking a break because we want to have fun, watch the final series, put the stress. We don't want to be stressful every time coming onto the podcast.
Absolutely not.
So we're just going to take a break and then we will come back for the grand final week to speak about the big day of the season. Who will it be? Maybe let us know.
Are we putting predictions on for the grand final now? Or is that too far?
Is it too far? Well, we don't even know who's going to make finals yet, so...
That's true.
If you want to, I'll put in a shout that I think Brisbane will play Geelong in the grand final. That's my prediction.
I might go... Can Geelong and Port play each other? I don't even know. I'm just going to go that, Port and Geelong.
Who knows? Anything could happen. Anything could happen. It's too early to find out, but yeah. So there you go, a bit of a preview for what we think the grand final will look like. But yeah, so we'll be back that week to speak about the big day of the season. But for then, we hope you enjoy the final round of the season, and we hope you enjoy the enthralling, the enthusiastic, the absolutely exciting final series that this year's going to bring. It's going to be unique. There's going to be teams that you thought weren't going to make it that will be in. It's going to be a hell of a fun ride. So enjoy it as it happens, and don't be complaining like, oh, it's in Queensland all the time. Who gives a shit? Just be happy that we have a final series to watch. It will be fun, and it's going to start on a Wednesday this year. Why not? Who gives a fuck at this point? I don't care. We're here now, and yeah, thanks guys for watching this episode of the potty, and we'll see you back on the grand final week. You absolutely can.